The desert has a way of burning itself into a man soul. It, wide, merciless, painted in dust and sun, and it does take care if you live or die. Out here in New Mexico territory, you either stand tall or get buried quick. But despite the land as cruelty, I built a life I was proud of, a small ranch, a cabin I raised with my own 2 hands, and most of all, a wife whose laughter could soften the hardest day. Her name was Mary. Mary was the heart of that lonely stretch of land. She could mend a shirt, milk a goat, and cook a stew better than anyone I'd ever met. But she was just some homesteader. As wife, she had fire in her, the kind that made you straighten your back when she looked at you. She tell me when I was bane, a fool, and I loved her more for it. She had auburn hair that glowed in the evening sun, and a smile that could make me forget how harsh the desert really was. We did have much, just a patch of garden, 2 horses, some chicken that pecked around the yard, but it was ours. And every night I'd sit on the porch with Mary beside me, listening to the coyotes howl, thanking God for the peace we'd carved out in this wild land. That peace shattered one morning with the thunder of hooves. At first I thought maybe it was travelers cutting across the flats, but then came the gunshots. A bullet tore into the chicken coop, sending feathers exploding into the air. The hens shrieked, and Mary's cry cut through me like a knife. 6 riders stormed into the yard, dust boiling around them. They wore bandanas over their faces, pistols flashing, whooping like devils. These weren't T-ranchers or lawmen. These were bandits, wolves in human skin. I snatched my Winchester from its rack and stepped out onto the porch. My first shot clipped the leader in the shoulder. He jerked in the saddle but didn't fall. His black hat shaded a face marked by a long scar that carved down from his eye to his jaw. His eyes locked on me cold, merciless, and I knew, in that moment, that he wouldn't stop until either I or everything I loved was gone. He spurred his horse forward, leaned low, and in a single brutal motion he seized Mary. She screamed and fought, beaten at his chest, but he hauled her up into the saddle like she was nothing but a rag doll. Mary! I roared, fearing. Again, but another outlaw. As bullet knocked the Winchester from my hands, I charged forward, bare-handed, but a horse reared in front of me, hooves lashing. The next instant, they were gone, 6 riders thundering across the flats. My wife's cries trailing behind, growing fainter until there was nothing but dust and silence. I stood there frozen, the morning sun burning overhead, my heart hammering so loud I thought it would burst. Everything we had, our little life, our love, my whole reason for breathing, had been stolen in an instant. Some men would have dropped to their knees and wept. Some would have waited for the sheriff or the army or prayed for a miracle. But not me, not when Mary's life hung in the balance. I ran inside, grabbed my Colt from the cupboard, strapped on my cartridge belt, and packed what I could: jerky, water, ammunition. Daisy, my bay mare, shifted nervously as I saddled her, ears twitching, as if she knew the road ahead led straight into hell. "Hold on, Mary," I muttered as I mounted. "I swear on my life I am coming." The trail was hard to follow. 6 horses had gouged the desert floor, their tracks cutting deep through the sand. I rode hard, the sun beating down, sweat stinging my eyes. Hours passed. Buzzards circled high above. Once I passed a torn scrap of Mary's dress, caught on a mesquite branch. I tucked it into my shirt, my jaw tight. She was alive. She was fighting. By late afternoon, I crested a ridge and spotted smoke curling against the horizon, a camp. My heart hammered, but I reined Daisy into a gulch and crept forward on foot. There they were, 6 men sprawled around a fire, whiskey bottles in hand. Mary was tied to a wagon wheel, her hair loose and wild, her face streaked with dirt, but her eyes still fierce. She wasn't broken. Not yet. Scarface sat closest to her, twirling a knife, grinning like he owned her already. I gripped my Colt until my knuckles turned white. I could have shot him then, but if I missed or if the others panicked, they'd kill her before I reached her. I needed patience, so I lay there in the dirt, watching, waiting, every muscle taut as a drawn bow. The desert night falls fast and cold. Coyotes howled in the distance. One by one, the bandits slumped into drunken sleep, until only Scarface remained awake, revolver across his lap, eyes on the dying. Fire. When the moon rose high, I made my move. I crept through the shadows, each step slow and careful. My knife slid silently through the ropes that bound Mary. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw me, but her jaw was set. "Easy, Mary," I whispered. "We're getting out." She gripped my hand hard, too hard, like she was afraid I'd de-vanish if she let go. And then crack, a twig snapped beneath my boot. Scarface head jerked up. "Who is there?" I fired. My bullet slammed into his chest, and he toppled back into the fire. Flames roared, sparks exploding into the night. The camp erupted. Men scrambled up, pistols flashing. I dropped one with a shot through the gut, another through the throat. Mary grabbed a revolver from the dirt and fired, the recoil jolting. But her shot ripped into a bandit's arm, spinning him around with a scream. One thin outlaw came at me with a knife, slashing my arm. Pain seared, but I smashed the Colt, his grip across his face, sending him sprawling. The fight was fast, brutal, savage. In less than a minute, 3 men were dead, 2 more bleeding in the dirt, and Scarface burned in the fire, his screams swallowed by the flames. Then came silence. The fire crackled, the horses snorted, and I stood there gasping, blood dripping from my arm. Mary dropped the pistol and threw herself against me. I held her tight, burying my face in her hair, breathing her in like a man starved for air. "You came," she whispered, voice breaking. "Always," I rasped. But one outlaw still lived, the youngest, barely more than a boy. His eyes wide with terror, he staggered to his feet and bolted into the night. I raised my gun, but Mary's hand touched my arm. "Let him go," she said softly. "Don't make yourself like them." I lowered the Colt. Maybe the desert would take him. Maybe he'd remember this night and never ride with wolves again. Either way, his fate one's mine to decide. We found the bandits' horses tied nearby. I lifted Mary into the saddle of a paint mare, mounted Daisy, and we rode out under the silver moon, leaving the bodies for the coyotes. When dawn came, it painted the desert gold. Our cabin rose in the distance, bullet holes in the walls, feathers still scattered from the coop, but still standing. Home. Mary slid off her horse and walked up the steps, pausing in the sunlight. Her dress was torn, her hair tangled, but her shoulders were square, her chin high. She turned to me, eyes blazing. "They thought they could take me," she said, "but they forgot who my husband is." I laughed then, a broken sound that turned whole. When I pulled her into my arms, I knew, with a certainty as strong as the desert sun, that no outlaw, no devil, no storm would ever come between me and Mary again, because when the desert tries to take what is yours, you take it back. Thank you for listening, my dear Wild West family. If this story touched you, don't forget like, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the next tale of grit, love, and survival.